running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans. Welcome to Talking in Ovals. I am Alex Cuesta, my partner in crime over there, Dave Hyatt. What is going on, brother?
The magic carpet strikes again.
Oh
Some
my
fast
God.
times at BU. Craziness.
Yeah, so we're going to actually go quickly through our intro today. Normally, we take our time, we yik yak, not happening because we got a lot to get through this week. We have an awesome guest and we have a ton of PRs, which we are grateful for. But today is Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, episode 73. Little preamble, like I always do. If you like what you hear today, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 star, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth and go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. Last week's episode, quickly, we talked to Jimmy Wischusen, Union Catholic, standout stud runner, number 7 in the nation in cross country. Had an awesome conversation. He's a fantastic young man. Dispelled some rumors. I had really good time talking to him, and
Was just named the Gatorade Athlete of the Year for New Jersey for XC.
Yes, well deserved because fantastic young man. Go listen to it. It was a really good show. And before we get into the PRs, I had to give a quick shout out to one of my own from my alma mater, from Marist. I had the privilege of being around this individual while I was coaching at Marist. I'm not going to take any credit for coaching him because that was all head coach Pete Colezo. But Marist owned Spencer Bossy Johnson, class of 2017, will be competing at the Olympic Marathon Trials this weekend, February 3rd, for San Diego Track Club down in Orlando. So we wish Spencer the best of luck. He's going to do great. He's a fantastic individual, and a nicer guy couldn't be having this success. So we're rooting for you, Spencer, here at Talking in Oval. So go get him. So
Are you ready to attack these PRs?
Oh, hell yeah, let's do them. So we got to run through quick. So our buddy Tom Figueroa over at Red Arrow Track Club, Southwest Michigan, gave us PRs last week and jumped back in, gave us a whole bunch this week. They had a meet over at Grand Valley State University in Michigan, and I'm going to go quickly, starting with the ladies. 8th grader Audrey Klein ran a 1600, 549.04. 9th grader Lucy Cross ran a 60 meter, 8.88. 9th grader Gabby Feisbeck, 200 meter runner, 30.07. 9th grader Bella Sladen York ran a 1600 and 702.94. 10th grader Isabel Laporte, sorry, I don't know if I butchered it. Correct me, Tom. Ran a 1600 and 548.96. And 11th grader Haley Schiffenender ran a 1600 and 522.75. So congrats to all the ladies there. Jumping into the boys, 10th grader Henry Robinson was busy. He ran a 60 and a 200. In the 60, he ran a 7.74, 200, a 24.31. 11th grader Eli Johansson ran an 800 and 206.82. 12th grader Alex Moyer ran the 200 and the 8. In the 200, he ran a 25.43, 200 and a 1600, sorry. Ran a 25.43 in the 200, 1600, a 444.01. 12th grader Eli Tony ran a 60 and 7.5, also an 800 and 204.46. And 12th grader Shea White ran a 1600 and 424.39. So all the Red Arrow Track Club individuals, awesome job. Great PRs over there. And keep on kicking ass where you guys are. I got a few more to jump through, and then I'm going to hand it to Dave. For my alma mater in high school, Manchester Township, Joe Kuruk ran a 7.4 in the 60-meter high hurdles.
I think it's 55.
And, what? It was what? 55. 55 meter highs. He was won the short conference championship meet, set a meet record, broke the all-time Ocean County record, which was held by Emmanuel Mayers from Lakewood, who I graduated with in 2007. So it's been a long time, and also is a Group 3 record. So awesome job, Joe. And lastly, from our good buddy, Coach Geiger over in Lacey, Anthony Antrona set a school record in both the long jump and triple jump. That long jump was 20 feet, 4.25 inches. That was a record that he broke from 2020. And then the triple jump was 40 feet, 10.25 inches, and he broke it by over a foot. So good job, Anthony. Sorry for speeding through everyone, but that's what we got to do. Dave, you're on.
Just one more from Manchester. Brian Swain.
Yes, Brian.
County and short conference championship, and one was 13, one was 12.6. So awesome there. We got two people from Manchester winning both meets. Now we're going to go on to where I teach at Manasquan. We have PRs. We have Achilles Etienne, 6.71 in the 55. Violet Nolan, 9.68 in the 55 hurdles. Freshman Rose Healy runs a 232 800 at the short conference and a 66 in the 400 at the Frosh novice meet. Leo Reyes runs a 507 in the 16 at the Frosh novice meet. And at the short conference meet, we had the short conference winner in Angelina George cruising through a 512 to win the 1600. And Chris Reyes has a PR, gets eighth in the short in the 800 in 203.54. And a shout out to two of our former guests. We have the great Emma Zawatsky from Freehold Township, goes up to Boston, runs 445.96. It's the U.S. #1 time now in the country. NJ #3 all time, about 7/10 off of the NJ record. So it's right there within her grasp. And one of our past guests, Josette Andrews, 1446.51 5K at Boston, qualifies her for the she gets the Olympic standard and a chance to qualify for the Olympics. Great job, guys.
Yeah, and awesome job to everyone PRs. That was an absolute mouthful, but well worth it. Keep sending them, because if you run them, we want to give it a shout out, because everyone that runs a PR deserves a shout out, whether you are Josette and Emma running for, big times, or it's your first time breaking 5:30 and you're, a freshman, sophomore, junior, it doesn't matter. So we're excited, and we are very excited to jump into this week's show, because this week, this guest was over at BU this weekend, announcing for Emma and Josette, calling them out and, calling out their times and things like that. So we are excited to have on Phil Grove. He is a FloTrack announcer and MileSplit for Pennsylvania and Ohio content guy, aka known as Old School Track. What's going on, Phil?
Oh, hey, thanks a lot, Dave and Alex. I really appreciate it. As you mentioned, sort of just still unpacking from another amazing weekend at Boston University, the launch pad, magic carpet, whatever you want to call it. It is a full 200-meter oval, and it's darn fast.
So quick question. Were you announcing last year for that slew of sub 4-minute times that happened that last year? What was that, last year's Terrier or last year's Valentine that happened?
I think it was Valentine. 52, the old record, yes. Supposedly at one sitting, one meet was 26, and they doubled it. Prior to this weekend, I said to myself, okay, how many sub fours are we going to have in this meet? And again, this meet was more focused on the 5,000. Yeah. Also, the women's 800 was really great as well. But the big focus, obviously, was the 5,000 meters, hitting both the Olympic standards on the men and women's side, going sub 13 as the men did, 5 of them. Splitting that up into 2 sections. And again, some was, oh, hey, we want the best going against each other. It's like, no, they want to go 13:05 or faster. And the brain trust at Boston University, Gabe Sanders and Jordan Carpenter setting that meet up. Jordan's a meet director, does a fantastic job, gets the top talent in, and to have 2 in one heat and 3 in the other, go sub 13 was amazing. But I said to myself before the mile, I said, okay, how many are going to go sub 4? And I said 18, and they got 20. And then on the women's side, they had 20 go sub 440, which supposedly is the equivalent on the women's side for the mile.
And it's amazing to see what they do every year. And it was a really smart move splitting up that 5K, right? Because these individuals, these pros, these high level collegiate athletes, like you said, were going there to get the Olympic standard. They weren't going there to mess around, and putting them on that track, all of them together, would have led to a lot of pushing and shoving, things that were unnecessary, where you have the 2 sections, they can spread it out, they understand what they want to do. And it was a good move. And that's one of the reasons why people love going to BU, because not only is the track amazing, it is ran amazing. When you're having 30 heats in the 200 and 40 heats in the 400, and then still 8 heats of the 5K, it's a lot. It happens every year, and they do such a good job of it. So Phil, pumped to have you on. So I want to start off how we start off every episode. So you am a runner. We ask everyone, when did they get their spark to become a runner? When did you sit there and say, hey, I think that I like running and this is something that I want to do?
It was around me. I was the youngest of 3 boys in my family growing up in Northeast Ohio. My older brother pole vaulted and was in track. And during the summer, he brought the pole home because he was, the star pole vaulter for the team, school record holder at the time. And he also had a very rudimentary pit, which was just basically a large like fishing net with broken up pieces of foam, like industrial foam, sitting in the backyard. We dug out the box, put it there, and he brought home, or we may have even made standards with a couple of tires on rims, and that was sitting in the backyard. So, but the real spark for me, I believe it was what they called field day at my elementary school in 6th grade. The longest race we had, you had the softball throw, the long jump, stuff like that, the sprint, whatever the distance was. But we had the longest race was the 440-yard hurdles. Whether it was 440 yards or not, I don't know. It was on the high school's track at the time, which was grass behind the elementary school where I went, back in the day. So this was like, 19, I don't know, mid 70s. I graduated from high school in 82, but I finished third in the 440-yard hurdles. There were like 3 or 4 hurdles, if I remember right. It wasn't 10. By all means, and they weren't 36 inches or anywhere close to that. But I finished third. And I'm like, okay, this is it. It was like, wow, this is cool. Got a little trophy, and that was it.
So what are some of your great memories? Did you run again? Did you, after that, did you run track and cross country in middle school, high school? And, what were those experiences like? What were some of your favorite memories from middle school running, from high school running that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing was that the program at my high school, Maplewood High School, again in Northeast Ohio, north of the steel making hub of Youngstown and Warren, was a fantastic program. One of the top small school programs still in the state of Ohio, if not the best. Our high school won its first state title as a team in cross country in 72. When I was in high school, we picked up a third and 2 seconds as a team.
Nice.
In cross. We had the state champion in the 1600. Again, it just switched over from English to metric. He set a state record. He went 4:13 in cavernous Ohio Stadium at the time. That the state meet used to be in the Horseshoe, and
Nice.
at the time, it was like
Cool.
92,000 capacity. Now it's 100 zillion. But for the state championship meet in track, they would bring in 30,000 plus people, and it really filled it.
This drives me nuts because that's awesome that they did that. We've been calling for New Jersey to bring the meet of champions back to Rutgers. That's the way it should be. The big state meets should be at your best, one of your best colleges, a major college track and field facility, because it's your state championship. So it's like, I appreciate that they do it. Do they still have it at the Horseshoe?
No, I mean, when they expanded the capacity from the 90s to 100,000, they lowered the field level, and where the track was, they put seats in. So to go from 90 to 105 or 6, whatever it is now, the track was gone. So, but they built a specific track only named Jesse Owens Memorial Track. It's a great venue. Big Ten championships have been there. They have the Jesse Owens Invitational or Classic every year. So it is a really nice track facility. It's 9 lanes versus 8, which is all you could squeeze into around the shoe football field. But I mean, when it was there, and in the late 70s, early 80s, there were some of the all-time greats in the state of Ohio. Chris Nellums, who is still a name that, even though later on was tarnished by something that he did and served his time for it. But he was one of the top sprinters and hurdlers, and his races over 400 meters against Robert Smith, the former Ohio State tailback and Minnesota Vikings running back. They were dialed in, going high 45s, low 46s, and the people were just going out of their mind as those two were stride for stride down the home stretch at Ohio Stadium.
And I mean, and that's crazy, just to think, like, they always talk about, football players and stuff being track guys, and they put them in there. And it's like, people don't realize how many of the all-time greats, and like now people are starting to notice, right? Tyreek Hill has really put a lot of that on the map, and even DK Metcalf, like both guys that have gone and competed in track again. as their pro career. But how about you specifically? Highlights, any highlights from your specific career, middle school and high school that you would like to talk about, individually or with a relay team or anything like that?
Well, I mean, again, with the high school program, with being part of the team at the cross country level, in track, it seemed like I was always snake bit. I was the anchor guy in the 4x8. Our senior year, I think it was the first year that the 4x8 was officially an event in Ohio. And I just got dog sick after the district meet in Ohio. Still three levels of getting there: district, regional, and then state. And at the regional meet, there was no chance that I was going to be able to bring the team home. We were in contention for that state berth, and it just didn't happen. But in college, I did run D3 my senior year. I was a captain, scoring the points for the conference.
Nice.
And the big thing for us, I went to, yes, believe it or not, Grove City College. So yes, kind of get the digs in here now, guys.
Nice.
I mean, honestly, that's awesome. You have your own shirts probably to say Grove on it.
Yeah.
There's a school down in New Mexico named Cuesta College, and I've been looking to one of the shirts. I almost jumped on a hoodie. It's a Eat Sleep Cuesta. It's not there anymore, but I should have bought it many moons ago.
Yeah.
Sure, cool. So at the time, Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh was the beast in Division III. I think they even made faces in the crowd in what used to be now Sports Illustrated.
Yep.
What it's going to be. They had the longest winning streak in college track and field. And our senior year, we beat them. We knocked them off. We won the conference championship, and that was real cool.
That's a big deal. So, what were your events? Were you more of a middle distance guy, long distance guy? What were your events?
Well, I mean, believe it or not, coming off the initial cross season, I remember my first cross country race, a 5-miler down at Cal U of Pennsylvania. I went out and I was the number 2 guy on the team. I'm like, oh, this is going to be cake. And of course, all of the upperclassmen, they didn't put the miles in over the summer. I did as this, newbie freshman. I'm going to go out there, put the miles in. The coach sent the training plan. I followed it to a T. And then, over the rest of the season, they caught up to me. Still was top 7 throughout the career. But I started out in track as a 5K guy. And by the time I was a senior, I was doing the 800 and 4x4 work. So I had a little bit of speed, and I came down and, scored in the conference in the 8, and also they suckered me into running 4x4.
So you had to be pretty fast. What were your PRs?
Yeah.
Mid 150s in the half, and I don't think ran the open 4, but split 51 or something like that. Nothing too crazy, but D3 is all right.
You had some wheels. Listen, that's not bad. Everyone's always humble about their times. So, that's not bad. You had some wheels.
So tell us a little bit now about your post-running journey and how you've gotten to where you are at this point.
Yeah.
Well, my first job out of college was, I thought I was going to be in announcing. One of the reasons I went to Grove City, because they had a very active radio station, where there's announcing, football, basketball. They had this day-long, I remember, indoor soccer tournament. It was 20 hours of soccer in the field house, in the gym. They took everything out and just bouncing off the walls. It was just crazy doing that. But all 4 years I did that. But the first gig that came up was the sports writing job in the old steel town of Steubenville, Ohio. Again, big time football, Ohio Valley, just crazy down there. So I took that, never got the radio job or whatever that I thought, because I had my idols in play-by-play announcing when I was growing up in Northeast Ohio. Joe Tate, the longtime play-by-play man for the Cleveland Cavaliers, just a legend. And I would sit there at the high school basketball games and do my best Joe Tate impression. And the first job that came along, again, you got to get a job after college, was sports writing. And it was cool. I mean, being in the daily newspaper business was a grind. We're a smaller daily, but 7 days a week, so covering everything. But when it came time for the spring and for track, it's like, hey, I raised my hand. This is mine, guys. I got it. And being down there, one of the big events outside of the state track in Columbus, and also down in Charleston for the West Virginia side, was that time the LB's 20K Classic in Wheeling. In the 80s, everybody and their brother who was anything in distance running. Bill Rogers, Rob DiCastella, John Sinclair, Mark Kerp, all of those guys that were just out there pounding the pavement, winning all the pro races. That was the national championship, I believe. In the AGs, Rogers won it 3 times. Rob DiCastella, world ranked number 1 in the marathon from Australia. He came and I think won twice. Mike Musyoki, one of the top African distance runners to come in to the States when, really the African distance runners dominated the collegiate scene. He went there and covering that race would have been like 87 and 88. In addition to doing the high school stuff, I think it was Memorial Day weekend was just like, wow, this is too cool. So to see those guys battle it out over an extremely hilly course in and around Wheeling, West Virginia was really cool.
That's cool. So, and then you were working for the newspaper for quite some time, and then did you have to make the switch to the digital era?
Yeah, my newspaper career lasted almost 20 years. Started in Ohio, worked at 2 papers in Ohio, switched to news. I remember, it was in sports. They called us the boys from toys because, again, it's wins and losses. It's not life and death. Yeah. So, you can always, kind of walk home at the end of the night smiling about, what you wrote or whatever. And that was what I liked about the newspaper business. Every day you can say, you know what, that was a good day. We put out a good product, or, what, we really stunk it up that day. We really missed a lot of things. But then I switched to news after asking some of the old time sports guys. It's like, hey, did you ever think about switching to the news side because it was just for career advancement? Moved the family, my wife and I, to Central Ohio, worked at a small daily out there, became the editor of the paper. And then my wife and I, Amy and I, had a son, and then another on the way. She's from Western PA, so it's like I started looking for jobs over here. Moved to Southwestern PA to move closer to her family, and also, as it turned out, mine. Stayed in the newspaper business, then left it because, I had 2 sons and trying to be more involved in their life, and took a job in corporate PR, and then retail, corporate, and then finally got pulled back in because one of my son's teachers was taking over the head coaching job at the local high school. And he knew I was a runner because I was dabbling in the, as I call it, geezer track masters running at the time. I was like mid 40s guy, still trying to get that 800 All-American standard for 45 to 49. And he said, hey, how would you like to be my assistant coach? I said, sure. I said, when you start, I'll start. When you leave, I'll leave. So I did that for 5 years. And he has 3 sons. One of them's a D1 commit to University of Pennsylvania, 6'8", can play all 5 positions. Shout out to awesome. Mike Foster for getting me this start. And because I was the coach of the distance guys, and also was a recruiting contact person. So wherever these our athletes wanted to go, I'd talk with them, work them through, and then I would reach out to the colleges and just beat on their door with phone calls and emails, and to try to work out the best situation for them, both academically and athletically. And we had somebody sign a scholarship. I sent the traditional, scholarship letter of intent signing photo to the people at PA MileSplit. Somehow it didn't make it onto the website. I understand things not getting in the paper or the website. So I called them and talked to Gail Rich and Don Rich, who ran PA MileSplit and MileSplit, and one of the big reasons why the national product is the way it is today. And she said, hey, we started talking about background and whatnot, and she knew of my newspaper background. She said, hey, how would you like to be our Western PA office? Because they were all Eastern PA based. I said, oh, absolutely.
Nice.
And, so I was coaching, and now I got into this in addition to the 9-to-5 job. So, and then 1 year, I was the Ohio State indoor meet, and the Ohio webmaster knew that, I did some broadcasting work back in the day. He said, hey, how about you joining myself and another guy, and we'll split up the Ohio indoor meet. I said, okay, fine. So I said, I'll start out. So I started out, they heard me. It's like, wow, he knows what he's doing. So I did all 9 hours. They never talked a minute, and that was the throwing me into the fire, so to speak. And then the rest is, I'm very happy for the opportunities that have presented itself.
So how did Flow Sports come about? How did be because of their correlation with MileSplit?
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the time, MileSplit and Flow were two separate entities, sort of competing, but not, because Flow Sports really was the college and pro side, and MileSplit was dedicated to the high school side.
Yep.
The two organizations came together with Flow, basically taking over MileSplit, bringing them under their umbrella. And so that's how I, got to do, college meet 10 relays 3 times back in 16. And then the last 2 years, looking forward, hopefully, to go back out this year and working a microphone there.
Well, I know that, it was nice watching the meet this week and hearing you talk. It's just fun. You guys get on great guests after they're done with the races. Like Craig Engels was on there. And it's has to be fun. I mean, if you're going to be at a meet for 12 hours, you might as well have fun doing something that you love doing.
Oh, absolutely. And as far as I'm concerned, bringing the Craig Engels, the Andy Rodenfells, the Sammy Watsons, Luke Griner from Army, he goes out and runs a 1:47.47. I mean, young guy, runs a PR. And after the race, and I think it's on the itinerary what the toughest event is, he showed the effects of running an all-out 800 meters. But, I mean, hearing it from them, I can describe everything with the great video to go along with my voice, but to get them tell it the way they felt it is so much better than anything myself or anybody in a play-by-play role, in my opinion, could ever do.
Yeah, and you're right. And we had on Julie Cully not too long ago, and I could, we could speak to that because she described in vivid detail her 5K winning time for nationals, the U.S. Olympic trials in the 5K in 2012. And I think me and Dave, still one of our favorite shows, just hearing the way she described it. Like, you can watch the meet, you can hear everybody talk about it, but when the athlete goes in detail and things like that, that's got to be fun. Now, have you built a relationship with any of these athletes that you see a lot? Like, do you have you gone to the point where certain athletes come and they're like, oh, hey, Phil, I'm gonna come after you. I'm gonna come talk to you after the race. Like, regardless, like, have you gotten to that point with anyone?
Well, I mean, I think sort of I have with Craig, because I did a little Instagram bit with him just before. Actually, he was doing a workout with Cal Poly, where he's helping to coach now their middle distance guys. And the December meet at BU, he got, I think, 2 of their guys under 4.
Nice.
So he's been up a couple times, and this time he chipped in with the color commentary.
Yeah.
So I know if I ask again, because normally, our production assistant will, I'll point him out and say, see that person with number 587, tap them on the shoulder, say, FloTrack would love to have them up to talk. But yeah, I mean, I have had some repeat customers, but I'm certain the next time I call on Craig, he will more than happily come up and chat.
He just seems like such just a fun, easygoing guy, who's out there racing and like just wants to do anything to help better the sport through, starting from high school. He said videos where with Emma Zawatsky on Instagram where they're dancing together. He just seems like a fun-loving guy.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. Whether it's because of his Ole Miss days or not, he sort of is a rebel, but a rebel with a cause. I mean, he wants to go out there. He knows that he's got to be, bring his A game to hopefully make the Olympic team this year. He was talking whether it's the 8 or the 15. The schedule is set up, so I think it's the 15s at the front of the meet, the 8s at the back, vice versa, but they're separate. And he talked about he can go either way, and he's going to do what he can. Oh yeah, he's got a great personality, and he loves life, and he loved having that headset on, talking about the race going on.
And he ran a 354, so.
And he ran a 354. And we'll let you know anytime there's any Talking in Ovals athletes there that have been on the show. We'll just have that connection. We'll be like, hey, go tell them that, Alex and Dave, you have the connection. You were both on Talking in Ovals. But no, maybe that'll get you something good. But everyone that's on our show runs well. That's our thing. So
I want to get into because we talked about earlier. BU. Why do you think that has become the place to go to run fast? Like, what do you think about that certain facility or that track? Just seems to have everyone just run so much faster.
Well, I mean, obviously, I think one part of it, and I'm not an engineer. I know enough about science to probably to hurt myself, but the engineering of it, the fact that it is a permanent oval, I believe. I know I've covered enough meets at Penn State, which is one of the hydraulics. They take the one in up and down all the time to allow the run out for the 60-meter hurdles and dash. I just think the feel of it. With my old school track name, talking to some of the old school track guys who ran on the bank boards when they used to be in the large arenas in cities. I went to the Knights of Columbus meet in Cleveland at the Richfield Coliseum at least twice with my dad back in the day, and to see those guys run on seriously slick boards with spikes where but 160 yards, so 11 to the mile, or 160 meters, 10 to the mile. Still, you're turning the whole time and sharp turns. But I think just the fact that it is permanent, they did it right. And this summer they went in and put a new surface on it. Also, checked under the hood, so to speak, and say, okay, let's look at all the supports and such underneath. And is there anything that needs shored up? And they were, I think, somewhat concerned that they didn't want to mess up what they had. And I think when everybody went up there in December for the Sharon Collier Danville season opener, fresh off a cross-country season, and dropped down the 5K times that those college stars did, it's like, okay, it's back. It hasn't changed. Lucia Stafford, I had up during the weekend live stream. She said, it's even faster. I don't know how it is, but it's faster. One, because it has a new running surface, so that's right. Going to you can much more grip. It's lively. They go to town. The atmosphere for the crowd is incredible. Somewhat like a hockey arena, because there's the glass above the running surface, so the fans are right on top of the outside lane 6, and on the back straight, they're on the ground level on the infield, so they really can ring it just like you see a lot of times in those outdoor miles during the summer with the fans in lane 3 and the runners in single file, ringing the track. It's just crazy.
It does a lot for the 5K and stuff too. When normally the 5K is tough, people in the infield that are competing, but at BU, that fast heat 5K in the 2, there's fans at every single point on the track cheering and yelling, and that's very different than a lot of other indoor facilities, even specific, because they'll have the stands on one side and then the other side will typically be super tight, really can't get to much. But BU affords everyone the ability to kind of gather around the track. You could be along the rails on both sides. It's fantastic. And there's so many scenes of, the runners getting done right away and just going right to the rails because the coaches are right there. BU's different. I'm curious with you. Have you been to the New Balance track that they built in Boston as well?
I have not. Every time I'm in Boston, I've gone to BU. I've been up there probably maybe close to a dozen times over the past 3 years. I know just as far as indoors, I've been to a lot of 300s. Probably the nicest one was maybe the first 300 I went to. That was Spire in Northeast Ohio, a U.S. Olympic and Paralympic training facility. When that opened back in 2010, the thirst and hunger of Western PA high school athletes, there are no indoor tracks on this side of the border. There weren't at the time. So going over to Spire, I remember running into a college competitor of mine. Actually, he was an All-American at Carnegie Mellon in the 1500 and a half. And the place seats 5,000, has a 10-lane straightaway, 8 lanes all the way around at 300, dual pits for all the field events. It's just laid out, and it is track first and then infield turf second. And he said, I would rather be here than at the Super Bowl. And it was right. Yeah. I mean, the crowd was huge. It probably was 3,000 or 4,000 people, and that was either 2010 or 2011. Right. And then eventually you had, Akron, University of Akron, Kent State, Youngstown State. Kent's is, one of those weird ones, 292, but Akron and
indoor,
Youngstown.
at the track.
Yeah, this is true. Akron and Youngstown are 300 meters. And then the weird thing is some of the odd distances, like I said, Kent at 292. The strangest anomaly out there is the Edinburgh University. And I've been up there many, many times. Most
PA?
of the high school runners from Western PA, 236.621 meters.
But why? Like,
Well, I had the conversation with.
That's a lot of maths to start any event.
Exactly. And I remember the first time I was up there covering a meet, they did the DMR and they completely messed up the exchange points. They were, okay, here's the map and here's where you're supposed to. I mean, it was all off. I don't know if it was the 800 guy or the 400 guy ran far too long. And it was like, what's the heck's going on? But they finally got it down. But I remember I talked to the longtime coach of their, Doug Watts, cross country and track. He's in the Hall of Fame at Edinburgh. And basically, the way he told it to me, that almost like the day before they were going to break ground for this, he said, "Oh, here, coach, here's the layout for the running track inside the bubble. Again, it's an air supported bubble. Except for COVID, they were going to replace. They were going to knock it down and put up a brick and mortar, is the way I am told. But he looked at it and he's like, 236. He said, give me 250. I can work with that. Break it down 1,000, 3,000, 2, give me 200, but 236, nobody can work with that. And you really can't. The PSAC has had their indoor meet up there, and they finally moved it out because of a number of issues, but 236.621, it's officially oversized, but it really doesn't help anybody. The 200 is, 9/10 of a lap. The 3,000, who knows where it starts and ends.
And it's got to be like, you're either gonna it's gonna be a little short or it's gonna be a little long. There's got to be there's nothing to give there. It's like you're going to an XC race where it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you go there, the time doesn't matter. Just go win, because like it's either going to be super slow because it's too long or really fast, and that's a fake PR. Like, I'd imagine no Edinburgh meet PR actually counts. Like, you can't count them because you don't know if it's real. But again, it's a track, and that's
true. That's right.
It is grateful that it's there.
So I don't know how much that you've been paying attention, but there seems to be a lot of hype about this world's largest indoor track that they're building in Vegas. Have you heard anything about that? I mean, I've seen a few renderings of it. It looks like it's going to be fantastic. It's like an indoor
400 with the 200 meter in between it. Banked 100. Like,
it's like a crazy, like it seems like it's going to be like an all year, all purpose 400, 200. It seems like it's going to be this massive place that's just for track and field.
Did you see anything if they could open up the top? Can they open it up and make it outdoor, indoor? Because that would be like revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean, you would think where it's located that that would be an option. I've seen the renderings, and I think actually I have the website open and they have the clock going. So it's 667 days, 13 hours, 12 minutes, and 40 seconds currently until the largest in the world.
And I did message them, and they didn't get back to me. I'm going to message them again because I want one of the representatives on to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I don't know if you guys know about the Dome in Anchorage, Alaska. It is an indoor. It is. I thought it was an indoor 400, but I went to the website before we got on. It's actually, believe it or not, 411 meters. The University of Alaska Anchorage team runs there, and so it is a 400 plus for whatever goodness reason. That indoor oval, but the indoor. I mean, obviously, it would be wonderful, and obviously they do things ultra big in Vegas, so you have a indoor 400 flat, 8 lanes, as you said, the hydraulic banked 200 inside, I guess, with 8 lane straightaway. It reminds me, and this was something back in I didn't even remember what year it was, but it was April 1999. There were 2 brothers from West Virginia who proposed out by Pittsburgh Airport an indoor racetrack. We are talking stock car, NASCAR, completely indoor, a mile oval indoor. And it was going to be close to the airport. A number of things led to it never getting off the ground whatsoever or breaking ground. One of them, one of the 2 brothers passed away with, I think, the following year. But the FAA and the airport authority had to give their blessing, and red tape just covered that. But it was supposed to be 2.6 million square feet, costs $300 million, seats 60,000 people.
How can you provide everybody with the mask? For the carbon that's
exactly.
gonna, like, how can you provide, like, you need to provide them with like HEPA masks because you can't breathe in all of that like exhaust.
Well, yes. I mean, talk about engineering marvels.
Yeah.
I mean, just the exhaust, getting it out of there and not killing everybody the first race.
I just think, man, I mean, like if this does get built and the whole thing comes to fruition, I mean, that's freaking incredible. 400 meter with a 200 meter inside. It's going to be, you know, probably next to that huge crazy sphere they have in Vegas, because everything is big there, and listen, I mean, it sucks that it's out on the West Coast, but it sounds like it's going to be
we talked about it here. Where's the outdoor facilities like this? Where are the track only outdoor facilities where we can have big time?
Right there. I mean, exactly.
400 meter.
When you think
track.
of most 400 meter ovals that, you know, the people you're talking about with the PRs at the beginning of the show, you know, they are wrapped around football fields and they're elongated and they're not like, you know, the perfect radius that brings about times like they run at Boston University all the time. You know, because if that were wrapped around, you know, yes, there are tennis courts on the, you know, on the interior. It's the track and tennis center, you know, for obvious reasons. But, you know, the radius is set up to, hey, we want this to be the premier facility, and it's going to be set up that way. So, you know, Hayward Field, short straightaways, perfect turn radius, you know, Olympic stadiums. It's not wrapped around a football field.
But it's a college. Like we want them where there is no college, and where, you know, Icon Stadium over in New York, that is a track only facility, but it is awful to get to, right? Like you can't, like, getting there is terrible. Over in LA, they had where they were gonna have, you know, where they had the Grand Prix. That's a rare track only facility, but everywhere else they use is collegiate. And I feel like anyone that's trying to run a circuit, like, we're slowly but surely being able to do an indoor circuit, right? Because you can go to Vegas, you can go to New Balance, you can go to Ocean Breeze, you can, you know, over in Staten Island, like there
Armory, New York City,
there's the Armory. There's becoming enough premier indoor where they can actually have a pretty nice pro indoor circuit. You know, you add another 2 or 3 indoor tracks, you have 6 big meets a year, and that's it. Like, that could be a great pro indoor circuit. But I would love to have a pro outdoor circuit. In your time, do you foresee either of those things coming true, where, you know, the pros in America can have a legitimate circuit?
Well, I mean, you do sort of have some fledgling ones, you know, out there now, but it would take obviously a major financial backing, and not just looking at the facilities, whether it is on a college campus or not. I know during COVID, Pennsylvania high school indoor championships didn't happen because they're at Penn State, and Penn State said we are not going to have, for great reasons, because, you know, it was a global pandemic. We're not going to add to the spread of this, you know, sickness by having thousands of people on our campus for an outside
no one truly
event.
knew anything about it at the time either. They did, you know, there was less knowing that, you know, if they're young and fit athletes, more than likely they're going to get sick and be fine in a few weeks. But we didn't know. There was still so many questions going on about it.
Yeah, and just the liability of things. But yeah, I mean, just and I know they've been proposing here in Western Pennsylvania a number of private entities going back to the indoor to build a 300. And there have been 4 or 5 different proposals. They say they have the financial backing. We're going to break ground. The University of Pittsburgh even had one, and COVID got in the way as far as timeline on that they were going to put a 300 down because Pitt doesn't have an indoor facility or an outdoor facility, yet they're a Division I track program.
Yeah. Well, Marist is finally getting our own. We're D1. We're finally getting an outdoor facility. Our president broke ground on it, the new president. So you're talking a lot about 300. Is 300 more common out in the Midwest? Because mostly the ones that we know here, you know, New York, New Jersey, is 200 or a variation of it, a 160, 250, something like that. But, you know, we typically don't have many 300 meters. Like, you know, you've been to Boston and things like that. It's a 200 over there.
Right.
Is 300 more common? Do you guys run more 300, 600s over in, you know, PA, Ohio over there?
Well, I know that obviously, you know, in Eastern PA, like you said, all those small colleges, you know, have 200 flats generally. Yeah. You know, Lehigh's got a 200.
East Stroudsburg has one.
I'm sorry?
East Stroudsburg has one.
Right. Yes. I mean, in the Midwest, I've been out to Iowa State. They have a big multi-purpose 300 facility. As I said, Akron, Kent, Youngstown, Michigan. They have the new 300 up there. So yeah, there are a lot. I mean, Pittsburgh State out in Kansas has that big oval that's been a national championship site, I believe, on D2.
Yep.
Yeah. So there are a lot of 300s because Notre Dame has their oversized above and beyond 300 meters. Michigan, though, they put in a 200 banked. I've been up there. I think it was the second year. Did a meet up there for Flow, a fantastic, gorgeous facility to replace an old flat 200, I believe. But they went with the 200 banked because they thought this is, let's say, the official shape, size, and length for the national championships. So we're not going to get into that discussion or conversation or argument about 300 flat versus 200 banked.
Yeah. That was just curious about that.
So we mentioned earlier in our pre-talk to this, you wanted to talk about your thoughts on the toughest event in all of track and field, and maybe some events that you think don't get credit enough for being as tough as they actually are.
Yeah, I always during my live streams, I'll bring up, I think, the conversation, the three events: the flat 400, 400 hurdles, or the 800.
Yep.
Again, having run the 800 and the way it has been run since one of the all-time greats that I've been fortunate enough to meet and spend some time with on a couple occasions, Dave Waddle. Since Waddle kicked
Dave
to
was
win,
on the show. He was on our show.
I know, I saw that. Since Waddle kicked to win in Munich, coming from who knows where, in a completely different country, to beat Arjanov at the line.
Yep.
The event has completely changed. To me, it was Earl Jones from Eastern Michigan University in the early 80s, when he was taking things out in 50.51 seconds, where all of a sudden, wow, this is the way it's run now.
Johnny Gray.
That's right. There occasionally when you'll see somebody kick to win by staying off the pace. But if you don't, as when I was coaching, you have to get out. If you do not get out in that event, I've called it at times the 400 dash, the 400 die, because if you do go out a little bit over that red line, you're going to pay in that second 400. So to me, it's the 800, but the 400 hurdles you see in high school.
I think hurdles is tough, man. 400 hurdles is. Whew.
You need to have 800 fitness or 400 speed to be a good 400 meter hurdler. It is very, I think that one, in terms of training wise, may be the toughest to train for, because you need to have that fast twitch. You need to be able to run, that 50.49, but also have the endurance to go out and run a 205 or a sub 205, to be a good, high school, 400 meter hurdler. I think I was an 800 meter runner myself, Dave, 800 as well, and things like that. I might give it to the 400 hurdles. Not going to lie.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think all three of them, and then the 400 too, when you see people running the 4x4 and they finish up, that one hurts too. There's no doubt about it. And it's so strange though, when you think, okay, the 10,000 meters, the 5,000, the athletes, the way they're just so conditioned now,
Yep.
They can close in 158 or something just insane like that, and come through in 13:0 something or 12:50s. That's just crazy.
I think the steeplechase needs some love as well in there, because I think the steeplechase cross country on the track, whoever decided to do that was an absolute psycho. You know what? Keep them separate. Right? That was just your 8K distance runner at ran cross country and was like, let's just make everyone get wet.
We're not using hurdles either. We're going to use
no hurdles. Use barriers, so if you hit them, you fall. Yes. They fall. It's such a bizarre race, and Dave and I were kind of shortchanged on that, because in Jersey there is no steeple.
Not in high school.
Not steeple in high school. We collegiate they have it, but in high school there's no steeple. I live in New York now, and the athletes in New York,
2000, right?
They run. It's a
2000. Yeah.
2000. Yeah. 2000. Yeah. 2000 meter. But, they run a variation, and it's why can't we have it in Jersey? It kind of pissed me off coming up.
I think because there's not enough tracks that have the pit,
Right.
Make some money. They need to retro them. Let's do it. Let's get it. I would love it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I I ran the steeplechase once in college.
too.
Once.
Yeah.
I wanted to run it again.
I ran it twice.
As I remember, it was like a 35-degree day. It was early April or late March. It was at Slippery Rock University, and it was very memorable. And hopefully the next time I hit a geezer age group where it's on my advantage with the zeros or the fives, and the hurdle height comes down, because again, 36-inch barriers for the guys is beastly. I know. I have an interesting story I have to retell. In fact, Annie Rodenfels, I had her on, and we talked at length just about her running career. She was D3. She was a steeplechase champion, and she may go steeple or 5K. She says she doesn't know which way she's going to go to try to make the U.S. team. But it was Brian Deemer, one of the all-time greats in steeplechase, coaching at Calvin College in Michigan, and our paths cross at Grand Valley State on there again, 300-meter indoor. And I brought him up and said, and we were talking about, I said, well, hey, Brian, I said, how did you get started in the steeplechase? Because so many times in the steeple, it's either a miler that doesn't have enough mile speed. He may be the fifth miler on the team. And okay, we need to find an event for you, or somebody who's really athletic and can hurdle, flexible, because that's key. If you can clip off a half a second or a second airtime, or come out of that pit, not soaked like everybody else is, and deep into that, and your body doesn't take the punishment,
or just
that way
great form,
seconds.
right? The great form also helps, because if you can have that form, like you said, you shave off, and if that's just ingrained, even when you're exhausted, you still have good form.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I asked Brian, he was a decent miler, but I said, well, how did you, get started in hurdling or whatever? And he grew up in Western Michigan, and he told me, a lot of farm country out there. And he said they used to, run through basically pasture area, and he would hurdle electric fences.
Okay.
And it's a viral video going out there and one time, it was dusk and it was getting dark, and he didn't see the electric fence, and it zapped him right across the thighs. And I'm just like, I could not believe that was the answer. It's still rolling to this day when I think about it, that he was hurdling electric fences.
And we had one of our former guests on, Scott Davern. He's a Manchester athlete. Went over at Lock Haven, which you'd be familiar with over in PA. Mm-hmm. And I remember coaching him in high school. He was a good miler, 2-miler, 800 guy, and things like that. And it was one of the 2 years I coached at my alma mater in Manchester. And senior year, I'm like, he's told me he's going to Lock Haven. I go, good. I'm like, I hope you enjoy the steeple. And he goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're a steeplechaser. I'm like, you're not a good enough miler to be, in Lock Haven, like the PSAC's serious. Like it might be, it's D3, but it is dead serious. They are very good, very fast individuals that come out of the PSAC. And I'm like, you're not a good enough miler. Like, you're a good miler, but you're going to go there, you'll get lost in there. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, you're going to become a steeplechaser. And after indoor, he texted me. He's like, I'm starting steeple training. He's like, I can't, but some people, like you said, you see it and it's like, okay, they're 420 high guys, right? Like they may be 420 mid, going to college, that's not, it's not going to cut it, right? Like college, you need to be, running sub 420 to be in the tops of your conference typically, right?
Right.
But he translated. He had a good career over there, and John Davern, his younger brother.
Yes.
John also a very good runner over at Lock.
Working for PA MileSplit.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
he's my boss.
That's
in PA, yes.
Oh my God, Davern being the boss of anybody is scary. John being the boss of anyone is terrifying. But you don't. This is a safe space. You don't have to say good things about him here. I'm very good friends with John.
I coached John in middle school.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
he's a good one. So I have a question for you, really quick. Being from Ohio, how much did you follow one of our past guests, Clayton Murphy?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the one of the things that I wanted to promote, and I'll take this moment. Legends Cross Country Meet. My high school, again, Maplewood up in Northeast Ohio. Every October, this coming year, it's going to be October 5th. We have growing high school cross country invitational, and this is the brainchild of the first great runner to come out of my high school, Ted Roop. Ted ran for Cleveland State. He was teammates with Mark Hunter, Drew's dad. Back in the day, they were a great program in the early 80s, late 70s at Cleveland State. Taking on at that time the African dominated teams, the Kenyans and the Tanzanians. You had Suleiman Nylan Bowie, Henry Rono, and those. Wow. And Hunter ran. I think he finished fourth to Rono and company in the D1 cross country championships that year. But he thought, you know what, we need to recognize the all-time greats from the state of Ohio that have come before us. So every year, going back to, I'm looking at the Legend site now, to 2007, we've honored a male and female runner, predominantly distance running, and almost always from the state of Ohio, who have really just given so much to the sports that we're talking about. And Clayton Murphy, one year, I was brought back into it because of one of my classmates who stayed in the community we were born and raised. And he said, "Hey, Phil, working now with MileSplit and FloTrack, can you come back and help us out?" So I helped recruit Dave Waddle in 2016 and Clayton Murphy the following year. And because of Clayton, it's like, I said, guys, he's young. He hit the big time with what he did in 2016. Ooh. Let's try to get Clayton in as a legend. I mean, he had a great Division III high school career in the state of Ohio, state champion, set some records. And so he was, let's say, a high school legend in Ohio. And then he did what he did at the University of Akron, took that to the next level on the U.S. team. And so Clayton came in. Clayton was great. He was our male legend in 2017. And the other people that I've been able to meet the last 2 years on the men's side, because of the connections that Ted had from the road racing days back when the name of the race is escaping me right now. In Youngstown, he was one of the top road races that Bill Rogers and Frank Shorter. He had relationship with Bill, and Bill actually was my color commentator for the season opening meet a year ago at BU. After really cool. He was a legend, I said, "Bill, hey, you live nearby, can you stop over?" And that was unreal, having Bill Rogers standing next to me with the headset on and in my ear, talking about the 5Ks that were going off the charts at BU. And then with Frank Shorter this year, all the stories, everything, again, the legends of the sport. And like I said, this meet every October. We've had Foot Locker national champions who ran for the state of Ohio, the Mid-American Conference back in the 60s and 70s. Again, you had Waddle, you had Sam Bear, who was one of the early sub-4 milers. His son joined him. They were, I think, the third father-son duo. His son ran for Pitt and ran for him, who just is an incredible mind when it comes to track, a great coach for a number of top high schoolers in Western PA. Alan Sharshu, who was a stud for Penn State University, was an 8:44, I think, full 2-miler back in high school. Awesome. And again, Mark Hunter, again, Drew's dad, who really now 10-man elite with his wife, is really setting up, again, one of those great running clubs out west. So again, I'm just so happy to be part of that. And again, those all-time greats, just to spend any time around those men and women is incredible.
So if you guys ever decide to expand outside of Ohio, we're friendly with Jeff Benjamin, a fantastic sports writer in track and field, and he does something similar where he does a Legends dinner for Staten Island Running Club. And,
I was there this year.
And Dave was there, and that's where he met Dave Waddle. He met Matt Centrowitz Sr. and
Bob Beeman and
Beeman. So if you ever want to expand and possibly get out to some legends just in track and field in general, Jeff's fantastic. I'm pretty sure
He's
he
the man.
hooked you up with, he's friendly with Sebastian Coe. We haven't been able to get Seb Coe on yet, but maybe for something cool like that, Seb Coe would go. Like, so if you guys ever decide to expand, let us know because we'll connect you with Jeff. Jeff is just such a great ambassador for the sport.
Wonderful man, yeah.
Like yourself. And I think you guys would, hit it off, be able to talk. You guys probably forgot more about some legendary track than I know, and Dave knows a ton. Like I'm like the guy that like the novice in terms of track knowledge.
He just talks really, really well.
I talk well. I sound like I know things. I don't know much of anything.
No, you don't. No, but I think the moral is that Clayton Murphy is a great human being.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he is, and I mean, obviously, if you look into social media, Clayton, is not afraid to share his opinion about how things
I know.
are run.
We had him on
not
after.
Run.
We had him on after Sydney dropped out of LA. That was the episode we had him on, and
he was not happy.
Piss and vinegar on this show, and it was great for the show, but yeah, no, he was not very happy.
Yeah, and that's being nice. So the race name, I can't believe I forgot. It was the Peace Race, and again, it had a really great mission, but it brought in some of the best distance runners. Again, Bill and Frank were former champions. Yep. But yeah, no, Clayton was a great legend, and Jessica Beard, we had her this past year with Frank Shorter, and she is an incredible human being. She's now a high school coach down in Virginia, and Jessica, I bumped into her at the VA showcase that I was announcing for MileSplit and FloTrack. Jessica, just a great person, an incredible 400 runner, and former Bowerman winner. So we've had a Bowerman winner. So we've had a really good list of legends.
That's awesome.
So before we jump out of here, because we've had a blast. I think we could talk to you for hours, but unfortunately, I make the joke all the time. We're not Joe Rogan. No one will listen to us for 3 hours. But before we jump out, I have to ask you the question that we try to ask all of our guests. In the sport of track and field, one of the missions for this show is for us to try and bring more casual fans in, get more exposure for these pro athletes so that they can make a career out of this, make money, right? Because our pro track and field athletes make very little. They work their tails off and they make very little. If you had a magic wand and you could make something happen that would make the sport of track and field profitable, that would make the casuals come in, would make this something where we can have, successful American track and field athletes, what would you do to make that change?
Wow, that's a rough one. And I know one thing that I was threw out as possible topics to discuss is I'll call them the IAAF or World Athletics with their new product of short track. I don't think that is the one, and I know it caught everybody by surprise seemingly back in May. What is short track?
Indoor is dead. Short track
200-meter track outside, right?
Yes. Yeah. I just can't see those going down in every, major city around the world. What the thought process was, I don't think that's it. I know, the NIL, the availability of that and the way that is being utilized right now by a number of college programs. I think that will allow, some of these, more of these athletes to be involved. I know one of the first high school NILs, Drew Griffith, the Foot Locker national champion this year, a young man I'm very familiar with, a great talent, is going to have a great career at Notre Dame. He signed in the beginning of the second wave with New Balance. I got to break that news with Drew. I saw a video the other day of Jim Ryan cranking out the last 300 meters of a race of the U.S. versus West Germany. I think it was in 67. He just like a 36 final 300. His legs.
The old dual meets were the best.
Yeah, it's just great. Those meets, again, packed the houses back then. There was the whole Cold War mystique of U.S. versus USSR and all that. The funding structure has to be there. How NIL is going to be handled, I know now it's in the halls of Congress. They had some testimony, I think, in the last week or so where some collegiate athletes went up there when they talk about how this, maybe from a federal governmental standpoint, will be patrolled and will be formulated and controlled. I don't know if that's the answer for how to govern NIL and how that's going to help these athletes. I think it will help some. I've heard just in my mind, obscene amounts of money being tossed at mid-major offensive linemen moving from a mid-major to a lower level Power Five. I'm like, you got to be kidding me that somebody is, again, a starting D1 lineman. Yeah, I covered high school pros. I covered the Steelers back in the day, and I understand the appeal of that and the money behind that, but you got to be kidding me that individual is able to get that type of money, and then you have D1 programs on the men's side especially being cut. That really hurts.
It does.
It certainly does. And and you touched on something with Jim Ryan and the United States versus Western Germany, right? Like, I think there's so many coaches that kind of hate dual meets now. They want to go to all the big invites, but
right.
People like seeing team versus team. People like being able to root for their side. They and I think one of our biggest issues is there's no attachment to teams there. Individuals, but there is no attachment. The Brooks Beast jersey doesn't mean much to anybody. You know what I mean? Like, right. Unless you're a family member or something but if there were teams and we can have dual meets, and I know, Tracktown was trying to do something like that, right? They had 4 teams with the coaches, but that was tough. And ATL tries to just have invites, but I think, you touched on it with the dual meets. That was easy. United States, we root for red, white, and blue. We're Americans. West Germans will root for West Germany. But if we had New Jersey versus PA, or even if there was a Western PA team, an Eastern PA, and there was a big in that would be fun. And I think people would be able to get behind that. And you'd have people that would hate certain states for no reason, right? I'm a New Jersey guy. I'm a New York guy. I probably wouldn't like the PA team just because they're PA. I wouldn't
Absolutely.
care. But that's the beauty of it. Right now, there's none of that. And I feel like you touching on that could be something that we've talked about. And it's difficult, like you said, right? Deep pockets. So instead of making these gigantic freaking facilities in Vegas, which is awesome, let's invest in teams. Let's make but hopefully that makes money and it maybe makes them want to do something like that. I don't know. But Phil, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Alex and Dave, I appreciate the offer and the time. This has really been fantastic.
Oh, it's been our pleasure and our honor. And thank you for everything that you've done for the sport and everything that you're going to be doing going forward. And I can't wait to turn on FloTrack and hear you announce some more meets.
Well, I'll be up there again Saturday, and then the following week for the 2-day David Emery Valentine. This week it's the Bruce Lehane Scarlet and White. And then on the 16th, Friday night, the Terrier DMR Challenge, a new one on their schedule. Ooh. The women's DMR field, as I get the inside information, is just absolutely loaded. Hopefully adding another guys team, but again, they're going for that number that's going to get them an automatic guaranteed spot in the NCAA final.
That's awesome. And I love that they're doing a DMR challenge. That's incredible. It doesn't get enough love. So once again, he's Phil Grove, FloTrack announcer. Go, subscribe to FloTrack and watch all the meets. You'll hear Phil being fantastic at his job. Also works for MileSplit for Pennsylvania and Ohio. And if you're missing out, go on his X, Twitter, Twix. I call it Twix. And go follow him at Old School Track. It's all, one word. Right now he's only sitting at a little under 1,900 followers. That's absolutely awful. Let's get this to at least 5K. Let's go, guys. Come on.
Let's do it.
Build it up. He deserves a better following. So once again, we're talking in ovals. If you like what you heard, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go look for us on the socials at Talking in Ovals and continue sending us those PRs, and we will continue giving them shout outs because that's what we do. So we will be back next week with another fantastic guest and another great show. Thank you, everyone, for listening for today. So long, y'all.